There are moments in history when a message doesn't come to the crowd, it comes to a remnant. Not to the masses, but to those who are listening beneath the noise, those who can sense that something is shifting before it fully arrives. And that is where this begins. Because a warning has gone forth, not wrapped in comfort, not softened for easy acceptance, but sharp, urgent, and unmistakable. It is a call to awareness, a divine interruption. And the very fact that you can hear it, that something in you is stirring even now, suggests that this message is not chance, it is intentional. You see, most people move through life reacting only to what is visible. They wait for the crisis to become undeniable before they acknowledge it. But that is not how the chosen are led. They are alerted before the ground shakes, before the sky darkens, before the world recognizes that something is wrong. There is a sensitivity placed within them, a kind of spiritual instinct that refuses to sleep when something is approaching. It's not always comfortable. In fact, it can feel isolating. You may look around and wonder why others seem at ease while something inside you refuses to settle. But that unrest is not confusion, it is communication. Because when a warning comes from above, it doesn't always arrive with explanations. It arrives with urgency. It presses on your spirit. It disrupts your routine. It calls you to pay attention when everything around you is trying to lull you into distraction. And the danger is not just in the emergency itself, it is in missing the warning, ignoring it, silencing it, convincing yourself that it's nothing when deep down you know it is something. This is why awareness is everything in this moment. Not fear, not panic, but awareness. A sharpened sense of perception. A willingness to pause and say, what is this I'm feeling? What is this I'm sensing? Because the chosen are not meant to be caught off guard. They are meant to be prepared. And preparation always begins with awareness. So if you feel the stirring, don't dismiss it. If you sense the shift, don't explain it away. This is not the time to sleep through the signal. This is the moment to awaken fully, to lean in, to listen more closely than ever before. Because the warning has already been given and those who recognize it will not be overtaken. And once you begin to awaken to the warning, the next question becomes unavoidable: what exactly is approaching? Because this is where many lose clarity. They look for something obvious, something dramatic, something they can point to and say, there it is. But the nature of an unusual emergency is that it does not always announce itself in ways the world expects. It doesn't always begin with noise. Sometimes it begins with a shift so subtle that only those who are truly watching will notice it. You start to see it in the atmosphere around you. Things feel off, not entirely broken, not completely chaotic, but unsettled. Conversations change. The tone of people shifts. There is a rising tension, a restlessness that cannot easily be explained. It's as if something beneath the surface is moving, rearranging, preparing. And while others dismiss it as coincidence or stress or just another passing phase, deep inside, you know it's more than that. You may notice it within yourself as well. An uneasiness that doesn't have a clear source. A sense that you need to get ready, even if you don't yet know for what. Your spirit becomes more alert, more sensitive. Things that once felt normal now feel out of place. Distractions that once held your attention begin to lose their grip. It's not random, it's a signal. A signal that something is shifting not only around you, but within you. And then there are the patterns in the world itself. Events that seem disconnected at first, but when you step back, they begin to form a larger picture. Sudden disruptions, unexpected turns. Systems that once appeared stable beginning to show cracks. It is not just one thing, it's a convergence. And that convergence is what makes it unusual, because it doesn't fit neatly into one category. It touches multiple areas at once: emotional, spiritual, societal, and it creates a kind of pressure that builds quietly before it is fully revealed. But here is the critical part. The signs are not meant to frighten you. They are meant to prepare you. The problem is that most people are trained to ignore subtlety. They wait for extremes. They wait until the situation forces them to react. But by then, they are already behind. The chosen are different. They are trained through experience, through discernment, to recognize the early movements, the quiet signals, the things that don't make sense yet but will soon become undeniable. So when you notice these things, don't brush them aside. When you feel that inner alertness rising, don't suppress it. This is not anxiety, it is awareness being activated. It is your spirit aligning with something greater, picking up on what others have not yet perceived. And the more you pay attention, the clearer it becomes. The fog begins to lift, the confusion begins to settle, and what once felt uncertain begins to take shape, because the signs are already here. They are unfolding in real time, and those who can see them now will not be shaken later. And as these signs begin to reveal themselves, another question rises: why you? Why are you feeling this before others do? Why does it seem like the weight of this moment is pressing on you first, while so many around you remain untouched, unaware, unmoved? It would be easy to interpret this as a burden, as if you are being singled out for difficulty. But the truth runs deeper than that. This is not about being targeted for harm, it is about being entrusted with awareness. Those who carry purpose often encounter pressure before the breakthrough. That has always been the pattern. The ones called to stand in light are the ones who first feel the shift when darkness begins to move. Not because they are weaker, but because they are positioned differently. They are placed on the front lines of awareness. And the front lines are never the most comfortable place to be, but they are the most crucial. You see, there is something within you that responds to what is coming, something that has been prepared long before this moment arrived. And that preparation is the very reason you are sensing it now. It's not random. It's not coincidence. It is alignment. While others are still asleep to what is unfolding, you are being stirred awake. And awakening is rarely gentle. It disrupts. It challenges. It forces you to see what you might have preferred to ignore. But understand, this being early does not mean being alone. And it does not mean being abandoned. It means being ahead. And being ahead carries responsibility. Because those who recognize the shift first are often the ones called to respond first. Not in panic, not in fear, but in readiness, in clarity, in strength. There is also a refining that takes place in moments like this. Pressure reveals what is solid and what is not. It exposes distractions, weak foundations, misplaced priorities. And while that can feel uncomfortable, even overwhelming at times, it is necessary. Because you cannot step into what you are called to do while carrying what will not sustain you. So the very tension you feel is part of the preparation. It is shaping you, strengthening you, aligning you for what lies ahead. And yes, there may be moments when you question it. Moments when you wish you could just feel what everyone else seems to feel: calm, unconcerned, untouched. But that is not your position. You were not meant to move with the crowd. You were meant to move with purpose. And purpose always comes with awareness before action. So instead of asking, why is this happening to me? Begin to ask, what is this preparing me for? Because the moment you shift that perspective, everything begins to change. The pressure no longer feels like an attack, it becomes an assignment. The weight no longer feels random, it becomes intentional. And when you begin to see it that way, you realize something powerful. You are not being singled out to fall, you are being set apart to stand. And then comes the phrase that seems at first almost unsettling: don't breathe. It sounds urgent, even alarming, as if everything in you should react immediately. But this is where discernment becomes essential, because this is not a command of fear, it is a command of mastery. It is not telling you to panic, it is telling you to pause. Because when something unexpected approaches, the natural human response is to react, to rush, to grasp for control, to make quick decisions just to feel stable again. But urgency can be deceptive. Not every moment that feels urgent requires movement. Some moments require stillness, and this is one of them. Don't breathe is not about physical breath, it is about interrupting the instinct to respond too quickly. It is about resisting the pressure to act before you understand. Because in moments of unusual emergency, confusion often comes before clarity. And if you allow that confusion to drive your actions, you can find yourself moving in the wrong direction, making choices rooted in fear instead of truth. So the instruction is this: pause, hold steady. Do not let the external chaos dictate your internal state, because the moment you lose your center, you lose your clarity. And clarity is everything right now. More than speed, more than reaction, more than urgency, clarity. Think about it. When everything around you begins to shake, the one who stands still sees more than the one who runs blindly. The one who quiets themselves can hear what others cannot. There is a voice beneath the noise, a direction beneath the confusion, but it can only be heard when you are not overwhelmed by the moment. This is why stillness becomes your strength, not weakness strength. It takes far more discipline to remain grounded than to react impulsively. It takes far more awareness to wait than to rush. But in that waiting, something powerful happens. The fog begins to clear. What seemed chaotic begins to make sense. And the next step becomes visible, not because you forced it, but because you allowed it to be revealed. And there is another layer to this. Don't breathe is also about trust. Trusting that you do not have to control everything in this moment. Trusting that not every answer needs to come instantly. Trusting that even in the presence of uncertainty, you are being guided. Because when you trust, you do not panic. And when you do not panic, you remain open to direction. So when you feel that surge, that pressure to react, to move, to do something, immediately recognize it for what it is. A test, a moment of decision. Will you surrender to impulse, or will you rise into stillness? Because those who master this moment, those who can hold their ground when everything else is shifting, will be the ones who move with precision when the time comes. They will not be scattered. They will not be confused. They will be ready. So when the command comes unexpected, intense, unmistakable, understand it clearly. It is not calling you into fear. It is calling you into stillness. And in that stillness, something begins to take shape within you, something deeper than emotion, stronger than reaction. Because this moment is not only about recognizing what is happening around you, it is about preparing what is happening within you. The kind of emergency that approaches is not overcome by external strength alone. It requires an inner foundation that cannot be shaken when everything else is. This is where readiness becomes more than an idea, it becomes a way of being. Not rushed, not forced, but intentional. You begin to understand that what sustains you in uncertain times is not what you build in the moment of crisis, but what you have already established before it arrives. And so the focus shifts, less on trying to control the outside and more on strengthening the inside. Your faith becomes more than words, it becomes your anchor. Not something you turn to only when things go wrong, but something that is alive, active, and steady within you at all times. Because when uncertainty rises, you will lean on whatever is strongest in you. And if that foundation is weak, the pressure will expose it. But if it is solid, it will hold you in place when everything else begins to move. And alongside faith comes clarity of mind, the ability to think, to discern, to separate truth from noise. Because in moments like these, there will be no shortage of voices, opinions, reactions pulling in every direction. But not all of them are meant for you. Not all of them carry truth. And if your mind is not disciplined, it becomes easy to absorb confusion without even realizing it. So you train your thinking. You guard your focus. You become selective about what you allow to shape your perception. There is also a strengthening of discipline. The quiet, consistent decisions that shape who you are when no one is watching. The habits you build, the distractions you release, the commitments you honor. These may seem small in ordinary moments, but in extraordinary moments, they become everything. Because discipline creates stability, and stability allows you to stand firm when others begin to waver. And perhaps most importantly, there is connection. Not surface level, not occasional, but deep and constant. A connection that does not depend on circumstances. Because when that connection is strong, you are never navigating alone. Even in silence, there is guidance. Even in uncertainty, there is direction. But that connection must be nurtured. It must be protected from distraction, from neglect, from the pull of everything that tries to take your attention away from what truly matters. This is the preparation that cannot be rushed. It is built moment by moment, choice by choice. And while others may wait for something to happen before they begin, you understand that the time to prepare is now, not later. Not when it becomes obvious. Now. Because when the moment fully arrives, you will not rise to the level of your intentions, you will stand on the level of your preparation. And when all of this comes together, the awareness, the recognition of the signs, the understanding of why you were stirred first, the discipline of stillness, the strength built within you arrive at the moment that defines everything. The moment where fear could take over or purpose could rise. Because let's be clear, fear will be present. It always is when something unknown approaches. It whispers, it magnifies, it tries to convince you that what is coming is greater than what is within you. It tells you to shrink back, to retreat, to blend in with the crowd and wait for it all to pass. but that was never your calling. You were not awakened to hide. You were not prepared to withdraw. You were set in position to rise. And rising does not mean the absence of fear. It means you refuse to be ruled by it. It means you see it, you feel it, but you do not bow to it. Because there is something greater pulling you forward. A calling that does not fade just because the moment becomes difficult. In fact, it becomes clearer. You begin to realize that this unusual emergency is not just something to survive, it is something that reveals. It reveals who is anchored and who is not, who is guided and who is lost. And in that revelation, those who are prepared begin to stand differently. Not with arrogance, not with noise, but with quiet authority. With a presence that brings steadiness into unstable environments. And that is where your role expands. Because this was never only about you. The strength you have built, the clarity you have gained, the stillness you have learned it now becomes something that others will need. In moments of confusion, people look for something solid. In moments of fear, they look for something steady. And whether you realize it or not, you become a point of reference. Not because you have all the answers, but because you are not shaken. Not because everything is easy, but because you remain grounded. And that alone speaks louder than words. So when others begin to panic, you will remain clear. When others are pulled in every direction, you will move with intention. When others lose their sense of direction, you will stand with purpose. And in doing so, you won't just navigate the moment, you will influence it. This is what it means to step into your calling. Not in comfort, not in ease, but in the very moment where it matters most. And yes, it will stretch you. Yes, it will challenge you. But it will also confirm something that has been building all along, that you were never meant to be overcome by this. You were meant to rise through it. So don't shrink back now. Don't second guess what has been placed within you. This is the moment where everything you've sensed, everything you've prepared for, begins to align with action. And when the time comes, you will not be counted among those who were overwhelmed, you will be among those who stood.